All right.
Hey, welcome to Tape Talk. I'm here with Walt Wimer, who is a guy that I have kind of gotten to know online over the last few years. It's just, salt of the earth type of dude. As far as I can tell, this is our first time to actually, hear each other's voices and see each other's faces, at least online. So, Walt, man, great to meet you in this setting.
Yeah, you too, Nathan. Thank you for having me. This is a pretty cool idea. I like it.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, who doesn't want to hear a couple guys sitting around talking about tape? Except for maybe your
yeah.
wives or your significant others. But
It's neat because you have a totally different way of approaching this hobby and everything, or whatever you want to call it, enthusiast endeavor. Uh, and mine in particular is, I'm an early Gen Xer. So I was born in the mid to later 1960s. Grew up as a kid during the 70s, and then a teenager during the early 80s. And I grew up watching all these science fiction shows like reruns of Star Trek, the original series, and Space 1999, The Six
yeah.
Million Dollar Man,
Oh
and
man. Yeah.
Mission Impossible. Okay, I loved Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And
Well, I see the
uh,
connection coming here.
Barney was my hero, because he was the electronics wizard. And yeah, I just got really interested in electronics and so forth as at a at that age, in the early 70s. One of my earliest memories was hooking up in kindergarten. These were kits made for older children, but I somehow my teacher gave me this little electromagnetism kit where I managed to, not knowing what I was doing really, I managed to hook up. It had this 1.5 volt dry cell battery that looks like a soda can. It has the two terminals on top, and then it had
Right.
wires with alligator clips and this little thing with a light bulb. And I hooked that up, and made the light bulb come on. And I was just, I was hooked. That was it.
Yeah.
Uh, so I went through, early, through the 70s, discovering Radio Shack and teaching myself anything I could about electronics. Um, then in 1980. Prior to that, I had met a man who is actually, his name is Fred, and he is married to my second grade school teacher. Would you believe?
Hmm.
Um, they they were walking along my street in sometime, like, so there was second grade. So this would have been I was probably about fourth grade or something. Uh, I saw the two of them walking along my street, and I said, Mrs. Allen, what are you doing here? And she said, well, we live here. And it turns out they lived on my street.
Oh wow.
So then as I was riding my bicycle up and down, I got to know, her husband, Fred. He would always be out cutting grass, or um, he collected cars too, sports cars and things.
Oh
So,
wow. Yeah.
uh, I really got to know him well, and found him, I have a good relationship with my father, but Fred was an interesting mentor from a different point of view.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
19 years older than I am, and I think what really made it click was my father collected 45 RPM records primarily during the
Oh
1950s.
yeah.
So my father was a teenager. My father graduated from high school in 1957, and he owned a 1957 Chevy Bel Air convertible, brand new at that time. And so he was like right there in the middle of the 50s. And I he's a total technophobe, knows nothing about electronics or technology, or had never messed around with tape.
He
So
was
for
just
him, it was
he
all,
was in the music. He was like a music guy or something.
yeah, it's just, just a regular old guy, loved collecting records and listening to the 50s records and so forth, and in through up to the early 70s. But he just, he didn't know anything about tape, didn't want to know anything about it. Uh, and so it's kind of odd that I gravitated to technology and everything. But he, where was I going with this? Yeah, so I convinced my parents, by the mid 70s, I convinced them to buy me a little portable monophonic cassette recorder, battery powered and everything.
Yeah.
That was my first exposure to tape. And I
It's
just
one of those
used it.
little rectangular, like a something like a businessman would have to do dictation
Yeah,
or something.
really, it's best for dictation.
Yeah.
And of course, I used it for everything I could possibly use it for. I held a microphone up to the record player and
Yeah.
recorded music.
Yeah. Been
television or
there for
whatever.
sure.
Did little stupid comedy things, whatever.
Yeah.
And,
I
but
did that with my sister as well. Yeah. We were growing up
right.
with those.
So my dad and I took a trip uh, uh, to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I live in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and he and I took this trip. And I said, "Hey, Dad, we could record your '50s records here and take them on my little portable in the car and listen to them in the car." And so my dad was all up for that. He did enjoy that and everything. And then so then I was exposed to that during that trip and so forth, and I got to like that music as well as what was current in the '70s and so forth.
Yeah.
And so long after that trip, months later, I had my little portable strapped to my bicycle, and I was riding up and down the street listening to the oldies. I
Wow.
passed by Fred's house, and Fred was he picked up on that right away. So, got the oldies playing there, and so that started a whole new level in our relationship. And he confided in me that he collected records also, and so he kind of he was married at the time, obviously, as I mentioned that he didn't have any kids yet. Later, that came later, but he confided in me, and invited me into his house and showed me his audio system and his records, and that was just amazing. I was hooked. I saw my very first open reel machine with my own eyes firsthand. I had seen
Do you
them
remember
on
what kind
TV
he
and
had?
so forth.
Do you remember what year?
Absolutely, it was yes, it was a Roberts 770X 770X
I know exactly. That was that Kai M8 version?
M8. Yes, so vacuum tube, quarter track, 7-inch machine, weighed a ton, but it was beautiful. It had uh, billet machined aluminum knobs. I mean, nothing
Yeah.
you would see even on the top end stuff today. Basically, it's very very rare to see. These are like
I actually
solid.
have a couple of those. I have a few M series decks, and I'm not as much of a tech as you. I'm more of like a shade tree tech, and but I picked up some of those, and a couple of them were working for a while. One worked for a long time, and I did the thing where I used the two monoblock amplifiers
Amplifiers.
as my power amp to run my uh record player, 8-track player, all that stuff through. Even though, and then I actually wasn't using the reel to reel transport on that. I was just using it as a power amp. But I did use it, in another setting. I did use it, and it's a great sounding machine. I mean, I know it
It
probably.
is. It,
I think if I remember correctly, seeing some specs, or just seeing like somebody posting maybe it doesn't totally hit go up to 20 kilohertz, in its best setting. Maybe it goes up to like 18 or 19, when it's like aligned perfectly. But who cares? It sounds fantastic. It's a
right.
great one.
It's got that great tube sound. Those amplifiers. They've got EL84s, I believe.
Yep.
So it's like uh, 4 watts, maybe 7 watts per channel or something. But Fred had used his a few times with external speakers, just standalone, kind of like what you're describing. And he said, a couple watts fills a room. It was fantastic. It
It's
sounded
it's
great. So
amazing. I mean, I wish, I guess that's what ended up happening. I think the transport on one of the last one I was using still worked, but there was just a problem. Like there was too much. I tried to futz with it, but I can mess with transistor or non-tube electronics, a bit more, but tube stuff, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It's rumbling and thundering, and that kind of thing. So I just put it in storage. But man, it's a beauty, really. I mean, especially, I mean, I can imagine. I was in a situation where that was, and if I may say, at the beginning of my kind of like tape audio journey, or when I mean, I grew up on cassette, but then I discovered 8-track and reel to reel like in the early 2000s. And I had similar to you, I had a guy also in Pennsylvania. He lived in drums. I was in Texas at the time, but he was kind of like mentoring me, through email and stuff and on the phone. And he told me about that. So I looked for one of those. I got it, and I hooked it up. I had these Akai, really nice, these flat response Akai speakers at the time, and just playing my audio through those. It was just like, wow. I can imagine. So I
Yep.
can imagine as a kid, hearing that.
Yeah, so I was probably about 12 years old, maybe. Yeah. Um, and he actually had a larger system that this was incorporated into. So I was hearing it through his amplifier and speakers and everything. But I just thought it was a gorgeous machine. And, it really, yeah, it just really cemented for me that excitement. And then in 1980, so I was 13 years old. He gave me what turned out to be a 1961. I didn't know what year it was at the time, but later now I've traced it to being a 1961 Voice of Music 722 model, which is vacuum tube also. And Fred was interesting. He also participated as a DJ on some oldies radio stations. So
Hmm.
he would be involved. He was involved with oldies radio programs, both as I said, both as a presenter, a DJ, and oftentimes as a listener. And he would call in and talk to the people involved or something. And so he liked to record a lot of those radio programs, and those would last for hours. So he'd set that up on that Roberts / Akai machine at 1 7/8 inches per second,
Oh, wow.
and record for hours that way. So, not the greatest fidelity, but he said, his main goal was to capture the verbal discussion and so forth,
Yeah.
because that's that's pretty priceless there now, and he still has all those tapes.
Oh,
So, so
how
he
much
got
older was he than you? I mean, how old is he now?
yeah, he's 19 years older than I am, so he's mid 70s now. He's still alive. He's doing great. He's amazing health, and he and I have joked, like, I started to realize, oh, he's getting older, and I'm someday he may be gone. But then I thought, no, he's in much better health than I am. I said, I think he's going to outlive me, But
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I can. Yeah. I mean, sometimes those old guys, they pretty tough.
But he's as thin as a string bean, and his wife. I'm sorry, not his wife. His wife's the same age, but his mother is 102 years old now.
Okay,
She's
so
still alive.
Gene's going.
Yes. Anyway, so as I said, he had all these tapes at the time, still does, all these things recorded at 1 7/8. He wasn't in need of another machine that could not do 1 7/8, which the VM 722 could not. It was 3 3/4 and 7.5 only.
Yeah.
So he gave this machine to me, and it turned out it had a few problems. The pinch roller was totally shot. It was all cracked and
Wow.
dried out and everything.
Even at that time, I mean, that's a long time ago for that. I mean, it seems like it wouldn't have
Yeah,
been that far in
1980, 61 to 80, so it was about 19 years. But yeah, the pinch roller was shot on that
Huh.
machine, and I think that was the main problem. And it probably needed some lubrication and things. This was all stuff that I had no idea
Yeah.
how it worked at the time. But I got the machine to work enough that it still sounded amazing to me at that time. And by 1979, I got my first stereo cassette deck. And it's an entry level. It's a top loader, but it had VU meters and auto stop. It was $79 in 1979. It didn't sound bad, but this 1961 vacuum tube, only half working open reel machine was still amazing. It sounded fantastic to me, and that totally got me hooked. So the next year, 1981, I saved up all my pennies from cutting lawns and things, and I bought a brand new Radio Shack Realistic TR3000, which is the TAC X3 with different cosmetics.
Yeah.
And so that was a phenomenal machine for me at the age of 14. And I love that machine. In fact, here it is, right? This is it here.
Yep.
You can see me
There we
pointing to
go.
it.
Well,
Um,
Walt, I was gonna add, one of my first questions was gonna be, I mean, I appreciate you took off on the rocket and, stall my question thunder here, but one of my questions was going to be, hey, what's your format of choice, Walt? But I guess, we can see what, you caught the reel to reel bug. And so that's your deal.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I went on like a hi-fi hiatus. After college, I got a degree in electrical and computer engineering, and then got interested in cars and car repair, and then a girlfriend, fiance, wife, bought a house, had kids,
Hey, let me
dogs.
ask you real quick. Okay, I know you got the TAC or the realistic, basically TAC deck, and then you worked with that for maybe a couple years, and then you graduated. So did you start doing a thing where you just were kind of going with the format of convenience for the time? Like, were you a cassette guy just for the convenience of listening, and then you switched to CD, and then
Yeah, that's a great observation. Yeah, so I as I said, I got really interested in open reel then in 1980. 81 through 84 was heavy open reel. I started driving in 82, so I had a cassette player in my car,
uh,
and
yeah.
so I recorded cassettes for the car and open reel for home. I did both, and then I did some live recording at my high school. They recorded my friends in the choir and the band and everything. I have a nice recording of the band. It's just phenomenal, even to this day.
Wow.
Uh, and
That's
then
really cool.
and I did that on the realistic TR-3000.
Were you kind of like the volunteer AV department or something, or?
In some ways, yes. I was in stage crew during ninth and 10th grades, so that gave me an in. I was friends with the teacher there who was in charge of that, and he let me hang microphones from the catwalk above the
Oh,
auditorium.
man. Don't
So
get
I
me
got a
started on
phenomenal.
catwalks. And
Yeah,
I
it
mean, no,
was
it's just
scary stuff.
guys, I used to love to my church I was at, went to when I was a kid. I loved like sneaking behind the sneaking in the back where the organ pipes were, and then going up the wooden ladder up to the little tiny door, and then just like going across the catwalk and like looking down at then the little hole, between the light cans,
Right.
and just like, oh my God, I'm so far up.
I know. Yeah.
It's a teenager, like I was like 14 or 15 or something. That was so exciting. Sorry.
Right. No, yeah, and yeah, that's exactly was my experience as well. It was scary to think, well, man, if I fall here, I'm going to land right on top of those auditorium chairs, and that's not going to feel good.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that he probably wouldn't. They probably wouldn't let you do that today. In the
Yeah.
'80s, it was different, I guess. I don't know,
Well, they
but
didn't let me. I mean, yeah. Well, I see what you mean. Like they're probably taking more measures to like secure. They're probably like some kind of like corrugated metal with like a padlock on it, and it's like
yeah,
there's no way you can get.
yeah. This was there were straight ladders bolted to the concrete wall.
Exactly.
That's what
Yeah.
you had to climb up. So
Yeah. Oh, the best they did
anyway,
was just lock the door, going to that room, but of course you
yeah.
just get a butter knife and slide it in.
Well, in the room where ours were, they were critical rooms though, because that's where some of the control equipment was for the lighting and everything else. So they
Oh, so
couldn't block it off.
theft
But
was an issue. See, in my church, the room that you would enter to go into that's where they stored. It was some kind of, well, I don't know what else they stored in there, but there was a shitload of candy. Like, I don't know, just like bags and bags of candy. So we were just like, that was our first thing. We were like, we got it was like the third floor men's bathroom. We're like, hey, there's a door here. What's this? Like, get a little card. I can't. Let's get a butter knife. So we found a butter knife somewhere around and snuck in. And it's like, oh my God. So then we're like, see this other door, and we're like, what's in here? And it's like, oh my God, the organ pipes. And then I got up the ladder. Anyway, sorry.
I got a college story about that someday on another episode. But
No, I want right now. Tell me right now. Come on.
well, just really quickly, when I was in college at Carnegie Mellon, uh, I worked in the data communications department, which wired up all the terminals and computer networking across campus. And so we had access to master keys for a lot of the buildings, and that included a master key called an M1, which meant maintenance one,
Mm.
And that, among other things, that could get you into the steam tunnels, which were underneath the campus,
Wow.
and had been apparently at one time, long before my tenure at the university, people, students were allowed to walk around in the steam tunnels, and it was a nice little, uh, way to get around when the weather was bad or something. But
Oh, okay.
eventually, for safety reasons, they closed those off, and it was verboten to be found down there. But a friend of mine and I, also in the data communications group, he said, let's borrow that M1 key. So we went down and we nosed around in the steam tunnels. We weren't authorized, but we did. And the other thing we did was we went to the very top of one of the academic buildings called Ween Hall, and there are 8 floors that you could access under normal conditions. Well, there's a quote unquote 9th floor up there that's basically like an attic, and we were able to go up to there. We also went up all the way onto the roof and looked down off the top of the roof at the campus, but had to be careful not to be seen.
Oh
But
man,
in that in
that's
that 9th
exciting.
floor area, there were storage for old computers and all kinds of stuff. That was like, oh man, this is great stuff. They don't use this anymore
Oh
in
wow.
storage or whatever. And some of those machines turned out to be kind of historic. That later I found out about them, and they were like early computers, PDP-11 variations on the PDP-11 computer that were multi-processor, parallel computing, all the stuff that was pretty cutting edge in the early
Did
70s.
you,
So
so are you saying that was there a situation where you like, so you were just trying to get trying to have a thrill. You got into these places where you weren't supposed to, and then you saw like, oh wow, there's some, now it's like going back into your field of interest,
exactly.
hobby stuff. Did you end up buying any of these things or getting from the?
No, unfortunately, at that time, I was still a student, and it wasn't, that was never even in my mind.
Uh,
And then, I haven't gone back. Probably a lot of that stuff is already gone now at this point, but
oh yeah, I'm sure.
it would be interesting to talk to somebody who has more information about that. But
Yeah. Okay.
anyway,
So you're in the 90s. You're saying you've gotten married, and you're just kind of like a regular guy with like just listening to music on CD or whatever. Then what?
right.
Where are you
Yeah,
going
in
from
84 is when I got my first CD player, and so by the 90s, audio kind of took a back seat, kind of a hiatus. But then I got divorced in 2013, and after a couple of years of getting my head straight there, um, by 2018 or so, I was discovering all these groups on Facebook, all about
there?
open reel tape machines and so forth. And so by 2019, early 2019, I had to back up just a bit here. Above the TR-3000 is a TAC X700R. I
Yeah.
bought that in 2007-ish or so. And so in the mid 2000s there, my thought was, oh, I just want to copy all my open reel tapes to digital, and then I'm just going to exit this format. And I just never got around to that, especially with the divorce. And it all kind of
Yeah.
went to pot. So by 2018, 2019 though, now my interest was peaked again, and I bought my first 10.5-inch capable machine, which was a TAC X10R. And then in late, like November of 2019, locally, I found a Roberts 770X available
There
for
you go.
sale.
You're getting nostalgia triggered.
Exactly, and it was in beautiful condition. It's a little further down off camera here, but so I have that, and it just snowballed from there. I was tuned into all these Facebook groups, and uh, you know got to know Kurt Palma in
Yeah.
Vancouver, British Columbia, and the fact that he sells and restores and fixes all these things. And I just, without really realizing it, without planning it, without controlling it, I went off the deep end, and I think over time here, I've purchased over 10 machines from Kurt, and then bought some others from eBay and things.
It's great.
And then the word gets around. Once people know that you're kind of a collector, then they go, "Hey, I've got an old machine. You want to buy it from me? And or do you want to fix this? What do you want to do?"
Yeah.
So now I'm up to about 60 machines. It's kind of insane.
That's,
Uh,
I mean, it happens. It happens. Yeah. I started, in, yeah, the mid 2000s. Personally, well, I grew up on cassette, even though I remember records and I'm 50. So I remember, there were records in the house. I remember from the 70s. And then, but, when I kind of wanted to start listening to stuff or doing things, making those recordings, it was cassette. So that was functional. And then I tried to go into CDs in the 90s. Actually, I had a mini disc diversion for quite some time. Uh,
mm,
but you know, then I was like, you know what? CDs, they weren't somehow doing it for me, so I kind of went back to cassettes because I was like, this is what I want to listen to. And then I was like, well, no, probably shouldn't. I was like talking about in around 2000 or 2001, like, now I need to, I really should transfer over to CDs. So I tried to do that again, and then I ran into, I found, like a reel to reel deck at a thrift store, woolen sock, like
mm.
1250, just one of those little, it's like an AV model,
It weighs a
it
ton.
was like like little tanks, like,
Yeah,
just,
exactly. All
but
metal.
yeah, so they anyway, I got that. Then I found a Revox 877 in a thrift store, and then that was in like 2005. It just, all this stuff is happening, and so yeah, and then after that, it's like, yeah, you just, that shit was just cheap at the time back then, especially. And so I've got a storage unit or two, full of stuff that I don't. I mean, I've tried to repair as much as I can, but I didn't go as far as you did with it. Um, I want to shift gears though a little bit, away
Sure.
from slightly from the tech stuff, and just say, like, I remember seeing your presence whenever you join the groups, and I just thought, like, I like this guy. I like his attitude and everything. And you're just,
Thank you.
you're so giving with just like encouragement and enthusiasm and stuff. And somebody asks a question, and you're just like, there's no gatekeeping and stuff like that. You're just happy to help and kind of cut through the BS, and tell people what they need to hear, give them some just practical advice, looking at, like taking all factors into account, which I really appreciated. I mean, it's funny because, like, I mean, I guess, as I can be kind of like I like to kind of mess with people a little bit, in those groups. I mean, I like, it's I guess, there's a certain situation arises where, there's some proud people, and I just kind of noticed that, and I start like to kind of poke a little bit. But
I poked back at you for a little while there. Then I
you
realized
did?
that I
I don't
backed
remember that.
out. Oh well,
I
when
don't
you
remember that.
complained about 10.5 inch machines, I said,
Oh,
there
well,
were a
I
few
mean, I don't
times
know.
after that that I said, unless you're Nathan,
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. So I mean,
But it was always fun,
I've
always.
just I enjoy my preferences a lot, and and it's like, and I'm a confident person, and so I just like to just like say like, hey, these are my preferences, and I don't give a fuck what you think about, whatever. But
Absolutely. Right.
but what
Nothing
I was going
wrong
to
with
say is
that.
that I like that, we connected a little bit, messaging and just in chat, in threads, and I really appreciate it. I mean, it's funny because it's like, in one sense, it seems like we're on two different ends, in a way, but we're kind of not, I mean, because
Yeah.
I as well, I like to, I don't like it when new people, they seem to get targeted, and that really activates me, and I'm just like, like, oh no, that's not, they're not gonna, I'm not gonna
That's
let
not
these
cool.
people start messing with them because of this and or what, and then you'll come in and you'll like more politely kind of do this a similar thing, but
Well, I love what
you're,
you're doing with your media,
oh,
your
thanks,
dead
thanks.
media tapes and things. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
no, it's, it's fun, but what I was getting at is that, well, I really enjoyed seeing what you did with that, what you took your, because I know you don't like to see people getting bullied, or just like
Right.
bullied when it's like I don't appreciate low blow things, like below the belt stuff. It's like, I'll be a gentleman asshole, and I've got like a code of some kind that I'll operate with, and like let people, it's like, if you want to throw the first punch, then I'll oblige you, keep, whatever. But but it's like, there's a lot of people in groups who just will go for the attack where it's unwarranted, and it's not,
Right.
and it's just, you don't, it's just not called for. And I think as a result of that, you started a new group.
That's true, right?
And
I
I
called
thought
it.
it was great. And tell everybody who would be
Uh,
listening, but
yeah,
the name
it
of the group.
really
What's
came
the full
down.
name of the group?
Right. The name of the group is Walt's. Well, I forget because I put too many adjectives
You
in there.
did. It's a lot
Walt's
of words in there, but
Walt's
that's why I didn't want to say
courteous,
it.
Walt's courteous, respectful, and friendly audio group. I think is what I
That's
called it.
great.
Uh,
That's great.
and
Which
it's
is
pretty.
so,
It's a
yeah.
private group, and it only has about 100 people currently. But we'd
Oh, really?
welcome other
That, oh,
people. Yeah,
okay.
we'd welcome other people who are like-minded. And my my big thing was, especially after experiencing, I have a Techniques turntable amongst a few other turntables, um, and there was one guy in particular that really, he's a total snob, and he both in turntables and tape decks and things, and you could probably guess who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to mention him. Uh, but yeah, I got into fights with that guy a few times, and I think finally, he's calmed down a little bit, and he's a smart guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's just terrible personality. At least it was. But anyway, after him abusing Techniques turntables and so forth for quite a while, and that kind of thing, I thought, I've had it enough with that. That's why one of the big reasons I started my group. And the idea was, hey, everybody starts somewhere, and there's nothing wrong with Techniques turntables. They're good. It's
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, it's
so
really,
the
and it's like, it's like, you'll say, you kind of have a format for whenever you respond to people, and, and you really break it down. But basically, and I mean, you may agree kind of where I'm coming from is that one thing I think is funny is that there's, a lot of people in this group are of a certain, in those kind of groups are of a certain age. And the ones who are just like really gatekeeping and, don't want to, get upset about different audio things. I wonder if they can even hear to the high frequency that they're like saying these things are
exactly
the best for, I mean,
right.
it's like, can you hear over 12K?
Right. And I've tested I have lots of gear here, electronic test equipment and everything. And I've kind of
Yeah.
informally tested my own hearing. And I know I can't go above 15K, probably 14K.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm losing that and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Biologically, we all lose high frequencies more and more every year. So,
So I mean, for me, it's like I what I think is that is um if you can, any format that can, I mean, at least reach in its prime, reach 12K kilohertz, it's I think it's a valid format, because it's like, you can hear the music that you want to hear, I mean, you can hear if it's on cassette, 8 track, whatever, all of those are capable of, at their best, reaching that. And, you can hear the like with the cymbals, high frequency information like cymbals, hi-hats, triangle.
exactly.
I mean, you can
Yep.
hear all that stuff still with that. Now, is reel to reel, is it the best as far as that? I mean, yeah, I mean, but, is it anything to, if somebody's trying to enjoy music, there's really, and like you say a lot that, I've seen you write to people where it's just a tactile thing, or it's like
Yes.
it's a thing where it's like you like this format and you like operating it. And is it the best? Who cares? In a
Right.
sense.
Right. Yeah, my feeling on that is, I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to, solid state versus tube, digital versus analog, whatever. I try to enjoy it all, and uh, yeah, I guess that's that. So basically, when people claim that digital's better, analog's better, I feel like I don't
I mean,
see that big
yeah,
of a
I'm
difference.
just I'm
I
just
enjoy
thinking
them
like,
both.
you can't even hear high enough
Right,
to like.
and then well, there was some other point I was going to make there.
I'm
um,
sorry, if I cut
that's
you off.
okay. No, you didn't even cut me off. I think I just forgot on my own. But
Um,
but it basically, like you said, I enjoy it all. And another angle for me, of course, is the technology itself, the engineering.
yeah,
I'm a computer engineer by profession. I my day job is writing low level embedded software that controls hardware that is in big power plants, and it
So you
controls
enjoy
big.
the beauty of the design of these things.
Right. And in addition to open reel tape decks, I collect oscilloscopes. I have oscilloscopes. My oldest oscilloscope is from the 1940s, the later 1940s, so after World War II. I've got a few in the 50s and 60s, and in through the 80s.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I just
I
love.
mean, damn. Okay, well, it's plain to see. We're gonna have to do another one of these real soon because we're about to. We have less than a minute. So, anyway, I think we've said a lot, and I mean, thank you so much for coming on and
Thank you,
doing
Nathan.
this. I
Yeah,
mean, you're great, and I look forward to more of your stuff. Okay.
you too. Yeah, I do look forward to it too.
All right. Take care, man.
All right, you too. Take care. Bye bye.